Good day,
Good day,
everyone.
everyone.
Did you
Did
know
you
in
know?
order to make kombucha, you need live cultures or other term bacteria? But don't you worry, because this bacteria is probiotic and could be beneficial for us. Today, let's make one.
Our group assigned kombucha. It's a type of fermented tea and is commonly consumed for the reason that it has many claims of health benefits. It originated in China and produced by the fermentation of sugar tea with the use of SCOBY, or a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. When the tea is fermented, it is usually left for 10 to 14 days at room temperature and could be added with fruits to serve as a flavoring for the end product.
Each group is assigned to a fermented product and is tasked with researching and performing the procedure that is executed to make a specific fermented food or beverage. They must observe both first and second fermentation and document about it. The students should have an end product of a fermented food or beverage and carry out the proper procedure while at the same time understanding the different roles of each ingredient and the processes that are present.
This fermented drink needs two fermentation. The first fermentation needs jar, black tea, sugar, pot, measuring cup, starter liquid, and SCOBY.
The method we use to prepare the first fermentation is bring water to a boil in a clean pot, add black tea bags, let the tea cool down to room temperature, cover with a few layers of the tightly woven cloth or kitchen towel, and secure with a rubber band. Set somewhere dark and room temperature for 5 to 30 days.
After fermenting the kombucha, we go on to prepare the second fermentation. This requires plain kombucha, apples, measuring spoons, strainer, sugar, funnel, and clip-top glass bottles.
What we did during the second fermentation was firstly, remove the SCOBY from the plain kombucha. We placed the sliced apple inside the clip-top glass bottles and then mix it with sugar. We then poured the plain kombucha moderately with the use of strainer and a funnel into the glass bottles. Then after 7 days, we transferred it to a plastic jar container for the actual presentation of the product.
As stated from the materials and methods section, there are two parts in fermenting kombucha, the first and second fermentation. The first fermentation ranges from 5 to 30 days. Due to limited time, we only had 5 days for the kombucha to ferment. To start the fermenting process, a SCOBY was added to the sweetened sugar. Note that kombucha's first fermenting process is aerobic, meaning it requires the presence of air. Thus, not closing the jar but using a cloth or towel for covering.
After the first fermentation, the kombucha is already ready for drinking. But to add more flavors, the second fermentation is being done. During this part of fermenting, fruits and spices are added. In our kombucha, apples and plain kombucha were added. In this fermentation process, a sealed bottle is used so that the kombucha will have a carbonation. The fermentation ranges between 5 to 7 days. The kombucha needs burping to avoid having too much carbonation. The SCOBY is responsible for converting the sugar into alcohol, ethanol together with the carbon dioxide and acetic acid. The sugar in tea serves as the primary food for the microorganisms, while the SCOBY contains the important yeast and bacteria. The microorganisms play different roles in kombucha production, with yeast producing an enzyme called invertase that will hydrolyze the sugar or sucrose into its simplest form, the glucose and fructose, then continuing to break down the glucose into pyruvate, then acetaldehyde, and finally ethanol, releasing carbon dioxide in the process, making the kombucha a little bubbly and fizzy. The bacteria in the SCOBY, such as Gluconobacter and Acetobacter, then converts most of the ethanol produced by the yeast to acetic acid, which adds complexity and sourness to the kombucha. The combination of these processes determine the flavor, acidity, and ethanol content of our final kombucha product.
Here are other documentation for this activity.
The final product has these characteristics. Color: cloudy, pale, darkish brown with a hint of yellow when struck in the light, and a smell that can be compared to a red wine, with a kick of acidity. Overall, the kombucha was made perfectly according to the methods.
was drinking a kombucha, thinking of the future.